Hey everybody, I'm Daniel with RW Supply and Design. Today I want to talk about drywall dust. One of the most common questions I get is how to get drywall dust out of a wood floor. A lot of wood floors these days are textured, and that provides a lot of surface area for drywall dust to hide in, especially on new construction or remodel projects where other trades come in after the floor is installed, and drywall dust is just inevitably going to get in some parts of the floor. So today I've got a panel that I've mocked up and I've divided it into fourths. I've got a control side which I've covered with floor protector. Always recommend floor protector on any project where you're going to have a wood floor down and you're going to have trades coming in after the fact. But I've got three other sections. I'm going to get some drywall dust. I'm going to spread it throughout the floor, grind it into the wire brushing on my floor as much as possible, and then go through some of the ways I recommend cleaning drywall dust out of a floor. Woo! That made me feel uncomfortable. Never feels good to wreck a brand new floor. But hopefully we can fix it. The first thing anybody's gonna do whenever they have this scenario and they're cleaning up from a dirty job site is vacuum as much dust and dirt up as they can. So we're gonna start with that, and I'm gonna use a vacuum that's got a brand new bag in it so it gets as much suction as possible. I'm also gonna use a horsehair head on my wand because these bristles are gonna get down in the grain a little bit better. Done vacuuming, that filled up my vacuum bag really fast. It's a very fine dust, so there was a lot of it, and I've got very little suction now. I'm gonna move on to the next step, which is cleaning the floor with a microfiber mop. There's a balance with how much of the cleaner I wanna use. I wanna get the floor damp, but I don't wanna get it too wet. If I get it really wet, I'll end up just pushing a slurry of dust around and it won't actually transfer onto the mop head. My general rule is for a really dirty floor, the most I'm gonna clean with one mop head is about a 10 foot by 10 foot area, so about 100 square feet. So I tried to clean it with the microfiber mop pad, but as I expected, there's still a significant haze on the floor. That dust is just so fine. It's really hard to get it up off the floor. So I vacuumed, I've used this. Now I'm gonna move on to some of the individual methods I try and use to get this off the floor. The first thing that I like to try is just good old-fashioned elbow grease and floor cleaner. So it does take a little bit of effort, but hopefully this will be the easiest, simplest way to get drywall dust off of the floor. So I bought a few different types of brushes online. I believe this is a horsehair brush used for shoe polishing, and this is just a nylon brush for cleaning. I look for brushes that have really fine bristles to get down in all the little facets of the wood grain, as well as bristles that aren't too soft so that they can actually scrub the dust out. I'm just gonna spray cleaner on the floor, scrub, and try to wipe that up with a clean rag and repeat as I go across the panel. And I don't want this to dry on me because my final step of wiping it up with a rag will hopefully get that up off the floor. Most of my brushing I want to be with the grain of the wood, because as I go with the grain of the wood, hopefully it'll dig it out of that wire brushing in the floor. And then I want to make sure and use a real clean rag, terry rag hopefully, and wipe that off of the floor. My goal with the rag is not as much to scrub as it is just to pick that off the floor. If I start scrubbing with the rag, I'm afraid I'm going to work that slurry back into the floor. The brush is what I want to scrub the drywall dust. The rag is what I want to get it up off the floor. But I think I do like this horsehair brush a little better. The bristles are very fine and they have no trouble getting down in the grain of the wood. Okay, I'm done with that, and overall I really like the look of that. I'd say scrubbing it with a brush gets me back to within 90% of the original look. I do see some areas where there is some drywall dust in the grain, and I could just go back and re-scrub those areas and probably get them to look even better than they do now. We'll go ahead and move on to the next sections and the next techniques that I would try. The hand brush method works pretty good, but what about if you've got a large area that's affected? That's gonna take a long time and a lot of effort. So the next thing I would jump to is a floor professional who's got a floor scrubber. So a wood floor scrubber is going to use brushes and a wet vacuum to essentially do what I just did with a hand brush and rags. So professional wood floor scrubbers typically have a tank for the cleaner, as well as a tank to pick up the dirty cleaner once it comes off the floor. This machine puts cleaner down on the floor. These two brushes rotate in different directions to hopefully scrub all of that dirt out of the floor. And then we've got two wet vacuums on either side that'll pick that up. Yeah, overall, I'm really happy with the result. That machine worked really quick and it got the majority of that drywall dust off, if not all of it. If I'm working in a big area, I definitely want to either have a machine like that if I'm a wood floor professional, or hire somebody who has a wood floor scrubber to do the whole floor. It's going to be fast and efficient. And again, you're mixing wood with water to some degree, and so you really want to have somebody who knows how to use that kind of machine. I still have a little bit of drywall at my edges, and I could use that hand brush method to get that off if I am running a big scrubber across the main part of the floor. Overall, I'm really happy. Between the floor scrubber and the hand scrubbing method, I think you'll be able to address most situations where you have construction dust and drywall dust in a house. If for some reason you have a floor that's just so highly textured, you can't get that dust out, you can move on to more intensive and nuclear options. One of the things that I was taught by an old flooring contractor was to take some stain and to put it on the floor and dye that dust back to the color of the wood. Obviously, nobody's going to endorse this as an official way to clean drywall dust or blend drywall dust. So I would only use this if it's a last resort, and I would certainly take time to test and make sure it's going to give you the result that you want, because as you do this to a floor, you'll be taking on that final result and the responsibility for that yourself. So with this method, I'm just going to take some stain, I'm going to rub it into the board, into the grain of the wood, and I'm going to wipe off as much as I possibly can, because I don't want to leave a stain residue on the floor. I'm going to get ready with my stain rags, make sure I have good clean rags to wipe off with. Start pouring this out in my rag. Really do want to take the time and scrub this down into the grain of the wood. So I'm done coloring that drywall dust back to the color of the floor. Again, you just got to be really careful with this. You want a floor professional to do it, you want to test spots, and no manufacturer is going to warranty this kind of a method. So this really is kind of a last resort method to use. And it's safe to say that the floor manufacturer's warranty is probably not going to cover the floor once something like this has been done. You might also not be able to recoat the floor in the future once you do this. But in a lot of situations, this can help prevent a full floor replacement. I've had a lot of success in the past doing this, and so far I haven't seen any problems, but again, it's on the floor guy to make sure that this is gonna work. I'm gonna try one more last resort option, and that's to put a new coat of finish on the floor to see if we can cover up and camouflage any dust and haze that's left. Again, this is a last resort option. Oftentimes, putting a new coat of finish over that floor will emulsify any of that dust that's left over, and once it dries, you won't be able to see it or see a haze on the floor. So I'm going to take this last section that I hand scrubbed, I'm going to put a quick coat of finish over it, and then we'll take a look at that once it's dry, and we'll compare all of our panels to the control. now that our finish coat has dried, I'm gonna pull off the floor protector and we're gonna compare all three methods to the original floor that hopefully didn't get any dust on it. So from what I'm seeing, the power scrubber panel is pretty close to the original. There's a little bit of white left in the grain here. The stain section does look a little bit darker than this because again, the stain was just a little bit darker, so it did actually change the floor. The finish section looks like a brand new floor and I can barely hardly see any white in it at all. So that looks really good. And then obviously the best solution is to prevent the problem to begin with, to put a good floor protector down and limit the amount of dust and damage that you're gonna get on the floor. So ultimately, what I would say is cleaning a floor is the ideal solution. If you can clean it, you're not voiding any warranties on the floor, you're not violating any manufacturer's recommendations for the floor. So ideally, if you can clean, if you can scrub, if you can find a good contractor that has a power scrubber for the floor, that's the ideal solution. Between my two nuclear options, I like coating the floor better than I like trying to stain the dust out. So coating the floor, getting it as clean as I can. Again, I'd recommend a recoat system if you're gonna do that, and certainly having a floor professional do that. Hopefully this gives you a lot of good information about how to take care of dust in the event that it's gotten ground into your floor. Check out some of our other videos for a lot of other good information on hardwood floors. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below if you have any questions.